I'm Monroe P. Weeks, Monroe Phelps Weeks, and there's a reason I'm emphasizing that because we got a few Monroes in this family. Monroe T, my uncle on my father's side, and my cousin. So I like to make sure I put the P in there, Monroe Phelps. And my Phelps is from my mother's side, so Monroe Phelps. And my father is the late James Milton Weeks, and my mother is Monroetta Georgia Phelps Weeks. Now my father's side, my grandfather was John Isaac Alexander Weeks. So that's my father's father, my grandfather. And his father was first generation coming from Barbados. They immigrated to Liberia, and that started the whole Weeks clan in Liberia. So they came off the coral way back when, and that started the whole Weeks clan in Liberia, up in a place called Crozaville. So they were growing up, they always called it up the river. I never understood what was up the river. Never understood up the river until much later. I think I must have been like maybe 12, 13 years old. But I found out why they call it going up the river. So a whole bunch of families came. And literally why they call it up the river is because they literally pushed the ships up the river. Okay? They couldn't land in where the previous settlers had landed. The president at the time, Daniel B. Warner, kind of sent a proclamation along the way, and he said to come home. Literally said come home. As these settlers came, there was some little issues there. We're not going to get into all that detail, and they literally pushed the ships up the St. Paul River, thus up the river. Okay, and there was a whole bunch of settlements there, including Crozaville, Clay Ashland, etc., etc. So that's where the up the river came from. A little bit about my father, as you asked me. My father was the late James Milton Weeks. He never liked to be, don't say to him, James Milton Weeks Sr. He says, I'm no senior. I am the J. Milton Weeks, okay? So he was the late James Milton Weeks, and my brother is J. Milton Weeks Jr., okay? So my father was the oldest of my grandfathers, John Isaac and Rosetta, of their 6 or 7 children. My father was the second. They had an older sister, and she predeceased all of them at a pretty early age. And then he became the oldest son. There were 2 daughters and 5 or 6 sons or something like that. But anyway, so my father was the eldest of that clan for the most part of their lives. And then my father these guys worked hard. My grandfather was a gentleman farmer, what they call gentleman farmer. He made his living farming. He grew cocoa, and he grew produce and chickens. And literally, I mean, this is what we watched all our lives. My grandfather used to say, I gotta drop this in. My grandfather, and literally you have no idea the things that affect us, right? Watch this, don't miss this one. My grandfather would say to us, while you're all resting, go pick up them oranges. Because, you know, in farming, the oranges they fall from the ground. But if you don't catch them quick, then, you know, the termites and all around. He says, while you're resting, we say, Grandpa, but we're resting. No, while you're resting, go pick up the oranges. There was no time for rest. When it got dark and done, that was when you rest, okay? So growing up with that type of work ethic, okay, I gotta tell you, even today, I tell that same line to my son. Amazing the things that affect us, right? So, so my father went to school here and then matriculated they left and went to school in England, where he went to the London School of Economics, studied economics in preparation. These gentlemen farmers who came, when they came, they brought a lot of breath to the Liberian environment. So he studied economics, came back, and his role was to help to build a viable, financial, sustainable economy in the country. He facilitated the process of the creation, along with the then President Tubman, what was called the Bureau of Planning and Economic Affairs. And he served that, and in that process, he kind of formulated, which then became the Department of the Treasury. And he served as the Secretary of Treasury for a long period of time, until the death of the then president, and he rolled over into the following administration with the Talbots, and then he left government. Always entrepreneurial. Even while he was there, him and my mother kind of ran the family business, trucking and clothing and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into all that detail, but I had an amazing experience. I got to drop this one on you. I had an amazing experience a few years ago. A protege of my father back then. We were in Liberia in 2014, 15, sometime like that. And I had the privilege of visiting this man at his office. And literally as we came out of his office, there's the new, what's called the Central Bank. Okay, there's a new construction, very elaborate, kind of A-class building right there in the heart of Monrovia. And walked out of his office and he said to me, MP, he points to the building, right? And he says, do you know that is your father's brainchild? I said to him, hey, Mr. Farhad, what are you talking? Now, I knew what he was talking about, but I wanted to hear him articulate it, because I kind of grew up around this guy. He was like a big brother to us, and he said, do you know, he says, most people in Liberia don't know that your father is responsible for the central banking system of this country. And he went on to tell me the detail about it, and it literally kind of took me back to when we were kids, because I remember when we were kids, right? We used to be, my father would always be visiting with these people, the president of the Irving Trust Bank and Chemical Bank, and literally my father would come to the United States, and he says he has meetings at the Federal Reserve. I'm like, what the heck is that? You know what I'm saying? Little did we understand, he was in the process of forging what he believed had to exist, okay? Kind of patent that after the United States, because at the time, we didn't have a system. And we had a single bank that literally was serving as, we had a U.S. bank that was literally serving as the bank, the central banking system of the country. And my father said he felt that should not have been. After a lot of pulling and tugging, that came to pass. So literally, it was fortuitous. When that man said that thing today, it kind of took me back. Fast forward a little, I had come to the States, and kind of growing up with this thing, you kind of don't know where it's gonna lead. But it's one of the things I call a detour to your destiny. Okay, we happen to have a situation in the country where we went to a coup d'etat. Okay, I was almost killed in that as a result of that situation. Today I have tremendous back pains. I was stabbed in the back with a bayonet and left for dead. But that was not my time. I was saved for a time such as this, so somebody could hear the story. So my father was arrested at that time, and and kind of fast forward, we by the grace of God, we got to the United States. Little did I know, that same place, what I told you, remember I said my father used to come to America and be, Irving Trust, and he always would come to this, but didn't know what it was. Wall Street. Guess where I landed up? On Wall Street. I landed on Wall Street, New York City. I tell you, when I got to that place, I almost, like we gotta say, we say, right, I almost died and went to heaven, okay? I landed up on this place called Wall Street. Guess what I would end up studying? You got it right, economics, okay? Guess what? I would end up working at some of the biggest firms, okay? In that same environment where my father came out of, and he went and forged the central banking system. I think you get the point. So we went through the coup, we kind of went through some things, left the country, okay? Didn't know about this other country, and just dropped in the middle of it one day. Is what I call a detour to your destiny. Today, you know, I think all of that is worth the music. That it was mandatory, you know, that we studied music, and we had private tutors and all that jazz. My father himself was a prolific musician. I think some of the songs you will hear on this clip, he kind of introduced it to us. We sang that song. I mean, you're talking almost 60 years, almost 60 years later, right? We still know that song by heart. Question is, what's one of the most important lessons you learn from your parents? I think that's pretty easy to give a response to, and I tell you why. Because you remember I talked earlier about work ethic, okay? Because I remember hanging out with my grandfather, and he's like, "Well, while you're resting, right? Go pick up an oranges." So work ethic. I mean, you couldn't be sleeping around my old man, okay? And then my mother, okay, she was just a stable disciplinarian, okay? So we there, and work ethic, profession, he's always entertaining, and she's got to make sure, and the place is always did. Till today, I'm telling you, you don't even realize this stuff. You know, I go to people's homes, look, some people, I'm just saying some people now, just look all kind of ways. Are you kidding me? You couldn't be MG's house, all kind of ways. As a result of that, I gotta tell you, I am totally anal about claims, about things being in order, things being correct, till people even notice it in at church, business, all of that jazz, right? So you say what's one of the important lessons? Work ethic. Treat people well. Treat people with respect. Okay, and you know, we grew up in the church. Okay, no, not because I was in the church. That meant I necessarily just knew I would have a relationship with the Lord. But because I was nurtured in that environment, it brought me to the point of, you know, to seeing that one day I too had to be faced with the saving grace of Jesus Christ. And we, that environment nurtured that, you know, work ethic, treat people well, treat people with respect, do the right thing, simply. One of the things I get today, even long past people, an old friend of my father's, a long time ago, my father's in the government, and my mother was, she ran the business. She ran, I mean, so he was like, no, I can't be doing two things, it's a conflict of interest. The guy was a stickler for stuff, right? Okay, so I can't be doing that. So you make sure, kind of set the infrastructure out, and it was a whole family business that he initially started, him and other brother and his cousin, my cousin who's doing this right now, her uncle, okay? There's a whole family business that just started, and for years, that thing is where everybody went to for clothing, school uniforms, and all that jazz. But I mean, work ethic, entrepreneurship, no wonder today I couldn't stand somebody's job, having a boss. Man, I'm telling you, when I came here, I think all those things prepared me. Okay, of course I got a job when I came like everybody else, $100, and then took a job on Wall Street in investment banking. But I gotta tell you, I couldn't stand the job. So I was looking for a way out of a job. I was nurtured around entrepreneurship. So you ask me, what is it that they taught me? I gotta tell you, that's it right there. So today, okay, work ethic, entrepreneurship, treat people well, respect, do the right thing, okay? I mean, treat people well and do the right thing, you know? So that's kind of it in a nutshell, if I should say.